Let me start out and welcome everybody. Thank you very much for coming to the global manga, the worldwide influence of Japanese comics. And if you've never heard about Japanese comics and animation, where have you been? It's like they're everywhere right now. And I want to start out by making some thanks, first of all, for the Mint organization in Japan, the Manga International Network team, which brought over Keita Katsushika here. And then also the Japan Agency for Cultural Affairs, and also the Japan Foundation New York, which has helped make this possible. And for me, this is the second time at CXC, and I have to say, I love it. It's great. It's just a wonderful con. With that, I think what we'll do is we'll just do sort of brief introductions, self-introductions, and since I think I can set up a little framework for something here, I'll start out. My name's Fred Schott. I'm a translator, writer, jack of all trades. I'm actually a stand-in, I think, for Adeba Oki, who couldn't make it here. But I wanted to just mention a couple things here. Does that work? Yeah. Okay. This is just a little bit of history to sort of set the framework for this. In 1983, I put out a book called Manga, The World of Japanese Comics. And it was published by one of the major publishers in Japan, Kodansha International. And there was some reluctance within Kodansha International to actually put out a book about Japanese manga because they had been mainly emphasizing in the English language area Japanese traditional arts and crafts and that sort of thing. And manga were thought to be a little bit risky. So you can see it's a totally different environment. Also, I had an argument with my editor in 1983. He said, let's use this word manga. And I said, no, don't do that. That wouldn't be good. Because card catalogs in 1983 were all paper. People weren't using computers yet. He said, it's snappy, manga. It'll be good. I said, no. It'll be filed the wrong place in the libraries next to manganese. Or people will think it's an Italian cooking thing. So anyway, just to give you an idea how different things are. In 2009 in Japan, the Liberal Democratic Party came out with an ad was placed in newspapers emphasizing their platform. Oh, I have to click it. Thank you. And this was kind of the beginning of the Cool Japan movement, which was modeled after the Cool Britain music movement in a way. But what's amazing here is you can see the blue arrow because it outlines what the Liberal Democratic Party, the ruling party in Japan, envisioned as their main platform for the election. And the blue line talks about broadcasting or promoting Japanese popular culture, such as animation and games, and included in that are manga, and then also traditional culture, both in Japan and around the world. Around the same time, actually, in Japan, there was the International Japan Manga Award, which was formed. And I'm on the executive committee of that. And I'm not trying to brag because I don't do much. But thank you. I have two clickers next to me. This is great. Good, thank you. But if you're an artist, you should take note of this because, let's see. Now we're good. One more. Click. This is the last award ceremony in this spring. And this is an international award for manga, which in Japanese doesn't mean just Japanese manga. It means comics as well. And there are now over 716 entries just this spring from over 95 countries and regions. So manga are really global right now. And if there are artists in the room, you should think of actually applying. There's no money involved, but they treat you like royalty for 5 days. So I just wanted to give that as sort of a background. And now I think we can move to the introductions. Let's see, we'll start out with an order of things. Maybe Gigi?
Oh, okay. Hello, everybody. My name is Gigi Murakami. I'm a horror manga artist and illustrator. Probably best known for my work Resenter, my supernatural horror manga Resenter, which was published with Viz Media and nominated for a Harvey this year, which is pretty crazy.
That's really great.
Yeah. Yeah, I have been a lover of manga for years now. Should I talk about my first?
Maybe we can go back to that in the questions.
Okay.
Yeah, but maybe it's a good time next for Keita. How about that?
Hello, nice to meet you. My name is Keita Katsushika. I'm the author of a manga titled Higashi Tokyo Machimachi.
Oh.
Did I get it right? Here we go. There we go.
Oh, okay.
Yes. Its English title is Diverse East Tokyo, which shows the lives of people and the history and the atmosphere of East Tokyo. Unfortunately, the English edition hasn't been released yet, but this booklet includes an English version of episode 1, so you can get it on Mint booth. So I'm really happy to be here today. Thank you for having me.
And then we'll move quickly to
Loui.
Loui. Yeah. This one's back.
It's
Or
back. This one, right.
Louis, can you see? No, you can't see.
I can see. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
So can you just...
Well, I can introduce myself. I'm Loui. I'm a manga artist living and working out of France, where I'm currently stuck for reasons beyond my control. But I'm happy to be able to be with you guys today. I do manga mostly inspired by West African folk tales, which is where I grew up in Ghana. So I've taken inspiration from the stories of my youth and mixed them into this manga type storytelling with all the traditional markers of shonen manga, with a French touch as well. We call it Afro fantasy, but also French manga.
I felt today, actually, as an American citizen, I should probably apologize to you. But we have you here in spirit. You're right here.
Yes, we do.
So I think maybe we can move on to some basic questions. First of all, to Loui and Gigi, how did you first encounter manga, and what was it like? Was it mainstream when you encountered it? And I think both Gigi and Loui, your situations may be different. I told Gigi earlier, I nearly fell off my chair when I saw that she had actually included in her slide deck. Let's see if I can go all the way back here. Oh, there it is. There it is. Where was it? There.
Yeah.
I nearly fell off my chair when I saw this because very few people know about this book. But anyway, maybe you could start, Gigi, and just say how did you first encounter manga?
Yeah. So this is Panorama of Hell from Higashi Hino, and
You want to click? You can click too.
This was the first manga I ever read, which just happened to be a horror manga, and I was far too young to read this. I read this.
You were far too young to read it.
I was 7 years old when I read this manga. That's why I'm so crazy.
Your parents were very nice.
My mom was not paying attention. That's what happened.
I'll say.
So growing up in the 90s will do that. But this was the first ever manga that I read, and it actually scared me so badly that I stopped reading manga until I was in junior high. And I actually borrowed it from a classmate of mine. I was about second grade, and I don't know what happened to that copy, but I recently rebought it. So I still have this edition of Panorama of Hell at home now. So sometimes I'll go back and read it and scare myself all over again.
And you also have the amazing fact that you were one of the first people to read Japanese manga from right to left instead of left to right at that time.
That's true. And in this book in particular, it does the thing that publishers did back in the day when manga first came out, where they would have the book, right to left, like the American way. But then inside, when you open the book, it's like, wait, this is the wrong way. So you have to flip it anyway. But it was printed in a way that the average American comics reader would not be so shocked until they open the first page. But a little bit of lore that I didn't tell anybody about on the panel is on Twitter, because it's Twitter, not X, it is Twitter. I'm actually, Hideshi Hino and I are actually following each other. And I had the opportunity to tell him how badly his work scared me as a kid and why it's like the reason that I now do horror manga. And he graciously said, "Arigatou gozaimashita." That's my claim to fame.
It's a great claim to fame. Gigi, maybe you could also tell us, because you're in a different zone than we are, what was your first exposure to manga, and was it underground? Loui, I'm sorry,
Loui,
not
yes,
Gigi.
yes, yes.
I'm getting totally
Sorry,
confused.
No worries.
But
No worries.
was it something that was mainstream for you, or was it kind of a real subculture? Can you comment on that?
Where I grew up, there was no culture to speak of. I mean, I was in Ghana in West Africa back in, I think it must have been 2010. There was no manga at all. So I didn't even know what it was. I'd grown up with French comics, bande dessinée. I'd grown up with American comics through various influences, because I was in an American school, so we had those references. But when a friend of mine told me to read One Piece, that was my first manga, I read it and I was really struck by how different it was. It read in the opposite direction. That's the first thing I noticed. And then I was struck by the fact that there was no color, the intensity of the pages, and I really fell in love with it at that time without knowing what it was. And I had to Google, what is manga? Why do people keep saying manga? Because to me it was bande dessinée, it was comics. And then I found out it came from Japan, so that made me more curious. So I kept Googling, and I was like, all right, there's a big comics industry in Japan. And I told my parents, well, this is what I want to do. I've always wanted to tell stories, but now I want to tell them in this format. This very specific format just speaks to me. And so I left Ghana, and I went in search of where I could get into manga. How could I get into this industry? And Japan seemed too far. I didn't speak the language. I didn't want to travel all the way without knowing anything. The US was also far too expensive for me. I did apply to a few schools here. I got a few scholarship offers, but it was still too expensive. And then the last option that remained was France, which ended up being the best option because we have the second biggest manga market worldwide after Japan, despite being a very small country compared to the US. And I speak the language, and my mother was French, so it all coincided really nicely. And I made my move to France in 2015, and I've been working out of there ever since.
Hopefully you can hear that. So the next question I think would be for everybody to answer, and maybe Keita, you could start. Manga means different things to people in Japan than it does in the United States. What do manga mean to you? What are manga? So I should say, what are Japanese manga to you?
シンプルだけどすごく難しい質問です。
That's a very simple and very complex question.
もうちょっと他の言い方なんかありますか？
自分にとって漫画って何ですか？
でも小さな頃から私も普通に漫画を読んでいて、私の子供の頃は、ドラゴンボールが一番すごく流行っていて、そういうふうに今アメリカですごく有名な漫画、ドラゴンボールとかワンピースとかそういったジャンプの漫画も自然に読んでいました。
So for me, manga was something that I grew up with. I grew up reading manga, things like Dragon Ball and One Piece that are huge in the US as well as in Japan, all came from the Shonen Jump series.
一方、ただそれも読んでいた一方で、そうじゃない漫画も読んでいました。例えば、水木しげるさんの妖怪の、漫画であったりとか、あとはガロというその雑誌があって、そこで書いていた作家の漫画、例えば柘植義治さんだったりとか、そういったメインストリームとは違う漫画も読んでいたので、漫画といった時に、ドラゴンボールもあれば水木しげるの妖怪の漫画もあるというふうに、すごく幅の持ったその表現ができる場所だと思っていました。
So in addition to those mainstream manga, I also read yokai-based works by Mezuki Shigeru. I read the magazine Garo, and I read the works of Suge Yoshiharu. So the manga can mean very mainstream things like we see in Dragon Ball and One Piece, but it can also mean more alternative things like we see in those other sources.
And I think this is a really important point because in America we're exposed to such a limited range of Japanese comics, of manga. And anybody who's been to Japan or who is really into Japanese manga knows that it's almost like this infinite empire of subject matter. So, let's see, everybody has described how they encountered manga. Then Keita, do you think, why do you think manga has spread so widely? Japanese manga have become so popular around the world. That would be the simple question.
そうですね。私が子供の時代を過ごしたのは大体90年代なんですけれども、その頃はまだ海外でそんなに漫画の認知っていうのはそれほど広くなかったような印象を持っています。
So I'm also a child of the 90s, and back then there wasn't as much global spread of manga.
もちろんアニメで、セーラームーンとかドラゴンボールとか多分その辺が徐々にアメリカのそのテレビでアニメーションが放送されだした頃がおそらくそのくらいだと思うんですが。
I think when we started seeing things like Sailor Moon and Dragon Ball coming onto the US television, that's when we started seeing more manga.
それからなんかこう見るうちにこう日本の漫画が好きな海外の人たちがこうどんどん増えていったように、日本から見ていてそう感じましたし、それがこうなんか世代を超えてどんどんつながっている。で日本の漫画の表現におそらくこう子どもの頃から親しんでいた人たちが大きくなって、そしてまたその子どもたちが読んでいるっていうふうに世代を超えてその表現がおそらく広まっていったんじゃないかと思います。
Do you think?
So I think that as that spread in the US and overseas, we saw more people be interested in manga, and we could see that from Japan as well as seeing those trends happen around the world. And so as these people started growing up with Japanese comics and manga, it became more spread.
Do you think that manga became popular overseas because of manga, or do you think they became popular overseas because of anime?
アニメがきっかけで漫画が人気になったと思いますか、それとも漫画自体が人気を集めたと思いますか？
私アメリカに住んでいなかったのでわからないですけど。
I wasn't living in America at the time, so I don't know why you guys like it.
でもおそらくアニメの方が早かったやっぱりすごく影響があったんじゃないかと思います。
But I think anime pretty much took off first in the US, so maybe that had a big impact on the popularity of manga.
And I think then another question would be to everybody. Comics in general and manga, Japanese manga, because I always have to get caught up on the wording here. Sometimes they've run into problems. In the United States, we had horrible censorship of comic books in the 1950s or into the 1960s, which really crippled the industry in many ways. In your countries, do you think, in your experience, have you experienced negative reactions to manga? Gigi, you want to start? Oh, we can start Gigi. He's at the left of the table. Hi,
Loui,
Gigi.
Loui.
I'm going to start calling myself Gigi. It's fine. About the negative reaction, I wasn't here to live through it, but I did hear from people that started out in manga in France maybe 15, 20 years ago that there was a huge governmental pushback. There were campaigns against manga, and I think most of it was because at the time the anime was considered cartoons and they thought it was for children, so the TV networks weren't very discerning about what time slot they were showing anime at and what specific anime they were importing into France. So it ended up being that like very violent anime was shown to children, such as Hokuto no Ken. And so when parents saw what their children were watching, they were horrified, and that led to this whole pushback, which I think was very generational, because today you have people who have grown up in the 80s and 90s with that first wave of manga who are now showing manga to their children, and everybody reads manga. I can't emphasize how dense the amount of people who read manga is in France. Like everybody reads manga. It's really rare to find someone who doesn't know what it is or hasn't at least read one or two manga in their life.
I think we're okay on
Gigi?
Japanese translation.
I got the name right. I didn't call you Loui,
Yes.
so that's good.
There's no switching. But that's an interesting question. In the U.S., I feel like that's a difficult question for me with the U.S. because, yeah, as you said, like comics did have censorship between like the 50s to the 60s, and it did ruffle some. It did kind of break a lot of comics like during that time, and even afterwards. So like in the 80s, when like manga started making an appearance, I feel like there was less interest because of that. But as far as censorship,
Or just resistance.
yeah, I feel there's maybe more resistance to manga at first, as opposed to now. Now maybe there may be some weird censorship stuff that might be starting to emerge, but I don't think it was so well known at first for there to be censorship in the way that we're defining it, I guess.
Yeah.
But definitely more resistance. People wanting to focus more on like traditional superhero comics in America, as opposed to these new comics that were coming out of Japan that nobody really knew so much about. But yeah, I guess that's, yeah, it was more I saw it more as a resistance as opposed to like direct censorship. I saw more censorship in anime in the US as opposed to manga.
I think just recently in Texas there's a bill that's moving somewhere against anime, but it's not manga, I think, as much as anime.
Yeah, no, anime for sure had more censorship. One of the most famous types of censorship that I remember growing up was like Sailor Moon and like, oh my gosh, I forget the name of the characters, but Sailor Neptune and Uranus, they being queer lovers and like being, the censorship being making them into cousins, which is like, why would we, I think queer love is much better than like, that feels a little backwards to me, but you know, I haven't seen that level of censorship in that way directed to manga. At least not yet. We have time, I guess, right? Considering everything and the reason why Loui cannot be here, we have time for that censorship to happen. But as of right now, I don't think that's been our history in the U.S.
日本ではおそらく昔はそういったセンサーシップみたいなものがあったと思うんですけど、少なくとも私が育った80年代90年代以降っていうのはそういったおそらく思想的な検閲みたいなものはほとんどなかったんじゃないかと思います。少なくとも読者としてはそういった動きを感じたことはなかったです。ただ、今でもおそらく性的な表現に関してはある程度センサーシップだったり、あるいはゾーニングというか年齢によって見せられる作品を区切るみたいなことはあると思います。
I would say that we did see some censorship in early days of manga in Japan. However, now we don't see that. In my lifetime in the 80s and 90s, where I'm most familiar with manga, we don't see blatant censorship. We may see that manga with more sexual scenes gets put in a certain place and only sold to a certain age consumer, but for the most part, no, not now.
Probably
very
hard
nice,
for Americans
quick
to believe
answer.
how little resistance there is.
に抵抗が少ないことはアメリカ人にとっては信じられないかもしれないです。
I think another question is, when people outside of Japan, when they think about Japanese manga, they think of a specific style. And that's, I think, often influenced by anime and other things. Do you think that that represents Japanese manga, or do you think that people should realize there's much more than that?
特定のその作画スタイルとかキャラクターデザインがその、漫画といった、そのジャンルを支えているかというと決してそんなことはないと思います。むしろそれにノーというために私はここに来ています。
Honestly, the main reason I'm here today is to encourage everyone to understand that manga is not limited to one style or one type of character design.
日本国内ではおそらく海外では全く出版されていないようなさまざまなジャンルの、漫画があってさまざまなそのタイプの、テーマだったり話題だったり、キャラクターをその取り上げた、漫画がまだまだたくさんあります。
There are manga that have not been published outside of Japan, but they exist with many types of genres, a variety of themes, subject matter, and characters.
そしてそれらのいくつかがこのミントプロジェクトの
You will see some of those in our Mint project sample, so please pick one up.
以上です。
Well, I think everybody here, including Loui there, and Gigi here, and Keita, everybody has been creating work that's a little bit unusual. So these are not, certainly in the American scheme of American comics, they're not normal American comics, and maybe in the scheme of Japanese manga, they're not normal either. So what are your biggest problems when you're trying to create something a little different? Say, maybe we'll start with Keita. What's your biggest problem when trying to create something a little bit different in Japan?
こういうユニークな漫画を作成する際に何か課題がありましたでしょうか？
私の場合は、主に、精神面の、メンタル的なその健康をいかに保つかということがすごく課題です。それは漫画の技術的なこととか、ちょっとその仕事に関することとはまた別なんですけれども、いかにその安定したそのメンタルで制作ができるかっていうのをすごく重要視しています。
I think my main focus, even more than drawing technique or the work itself, is maintaining my own mental health.
それは最近はSNS などですごくいろんな反応を目にすることができるので、中にはすごく私の作品に対してあんまりこの絵柄が好きじゃないとかそういった意見を目にすることもあるんですけれども。
For example, you go on social media and you see lots of reactions to your art. People saying, "I don't like the way you designed this."
でもそれはもう映画を見てこの俳優の顔が嫌いだっていうのと同じなので、もうどうしようもないので、もう無視することにしています。
But I started taking it like someone going to a movie and saying, "Hey, I don't like that actor's face." Yeah, just ignore it.
What about trying to get more readers in Japan? Do you have any obstacles?
読者を増やすことで何か課題がありましたでしょうか？
読者を
増やす
ことの課題。
もっと多くの人に読んでもらうために。
どうやったら読んでもらえるかっていうのと。おそらく私が描いている漫画っていうのはさっきも話したようにメインストリームの漫画とはちょっと違うものを描いているので、いかにそこに迎合せずにでも読んでもらえるか、そのメインストリームで好まれる表現と自分の、描きたい表現とのせめぎ合いというか、どうやその調整ですかね。訳しにくいですね。
書きながらそれを調整するんですか？
いや、考える時とか、そうです制作のプロセスにおいてです。
I know that the manga that I want to create is not mainstream, so I have to keep in mind that what mainstream audiences are interested in and what I want to write are different, and kind of judge how much I want to close that gap.
Maybe I can interrupt. Can I show them your book? This is a very unique book in many ways. The Japanese title is Higashi Tokyo Machimachi. So East Tokyo and the wards in Tokyo. And machimachi is a pun. It also means a variety, a lot of variety. And he's writing specifically about a ward in Tokyo called Katsushika. It's a famous ward in Tokyo. It's mainly known, if most people who are into manga, they hear it, they think of a popular series in Japan about a policeman. And it's one of the longest running manga series in Japan. It made it into anime and movies and everything. But his pen name is also Katsushika. So his own pen name is the name of the ward in Tokyo. And he lives and was born in Katsushika, Tokyo. So you can tell he's very creative. Gigi, I'd like to turn it over to you.
Yeah, that's a good question. I agree with Keita Sensei about the social media stuff. In getting published by Viz, Viz is very popular in America, which is like the smaller company from Shueisha, their American branch. And when the announcement was made that Resenter was published, I think in about 2 days, it reached about 1 million views on Twitter. And so I was receiving so many different messages, back and forth, mostly good, but quite a few that were not so good. So I understand. I understand your feeling about like social media being kind of like a struggle. And having to deal with so many eyeballs on your work. I think something that's a little different, though, that I face as an American is some of the comments that I got from social media, were talking about how this is not real manga. So this is a problem that, as Westerners and non-Japanese mangaka face, is that this is not real manga. Even though my editor, who is Japanese and has produced or helped to edit some of the most amazing manga ever, edited my work. I don't know why that would ever come up as it's not real manga. What is real manga then, I guess? So that's something that I have had to deal with, and I'm very thankful actually for a lot of the Japanese mangaka and the manga industry, because they've all been very supportive about my work and the work of other non-Japanese mangaka who are looking to get into this space, who love manga and love Japanese culture and just want to add to it and understand we have so much love. So yeah, that's my struggle. Yeah, 100%. And that also adds into sometimes the difficulty of getting people to read my work as well. Yeah. Because it's well, why would I waste my time on this woke manga? So, not only is it not real manga, but now because I have a black main character, it's woke. So, that's the silliness I have to go through.
You only had to come from New York, and I only came from the West Coast. At least we didn't have to come from Europe and run into all these issues.
Yeah, 100%.
And I guess, Loui, maybe you have some similar experiences or different experiences?
Well, when I started, I think I came at just the right time in France, where everybody was, the mentalities were shifting. So I actually haven't gotten a single negative comment, which honestly frustrates me. I'm kind of upset about that, because I heard that the more haters you have, that means you must be doing something right. I heard it means people are seeing your work and talking about it. So I was worried for a bit that nobody was reading my work. But I think what mostly explains it is I self-published to start, so I would do conventions, I would do festivals like the one where I'm not currently at. But in France, we have a lot of those, and I would do upwards of 60 or 70 festivals per year, all year, just meeting people and showing them my work in person and telling them, do you like this? Is it easy to read? Do you understand what's going on? And I think the in-person factor makes it really hard for anybody to tell someone else, I don't like your work, it's ugly, or, so I think I've had mostly positive interactions. But also the work that we're doing in France is trying to teach people that manga isn't specifically about what it looks like or the fact that a Japanese person made it. It's more of like a sort of grammar. It's a format for storytelling. So the way that you arrange the panels, maybe the rhythm of the storytelling, the way you cut down the action, those are the things that are going to differentiate between manga and traditional French bande dessinée and American comics. That's where the difference is for me. And in the last 5 or 10 years, people in France have really been getting used to it. As I said, there's this whole new generation that grew up on manga, so they don't mind anymore. And people will look at my work and they'll automatically identify it as manga. They'll say, this is manga, and I want to read it. So it's been all positive for me.
I'm thinking about moving to France.
Right? Let's go to Europe. Spain is like that as
Great
well.
market here.
And the next question is kind of related to that, but in your countries, each person in your country, are there any, I'm sorry to ask this question, are there any programs to support manga artists or comic book artists?
まさにその支援でここに来ています。
That's what brought me here, is that kind of governmental support. Thank you.
I'm sorry to ask you this question.
Yeah, this is a loaded question. I am grateful. I am grateful to the Japan Foundation of New York, though, because they brought me here. But it's it's not quite like government.
It's not like the American government.
Yeah.
I think they brought me here too. I know I'm deeply indebted to them. So
Yes.
anyway.
Thank you, Japan. Well, yeah, no, as far as the US government, there's not so much support for things like that, but that's why it's good to like come to events like this, to meet people, to go to libraries and talk to people, because it is very community-based when it comes to comics in the US.
It's a world. It's our world.
It's our world. We make it what it is. So we have to support each other.
Loui, I have to ask you this question because I said I'm thinking maybe I should move to France. Can you comment?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
This is turning into a very propaganda for France intervention. I'm going to make you guys jealous, but yeah, we have a lot of support for not specifically manga, but for culture. We have a lot of programs, government aids, government scholarships for culture in general, because we do have a huge bande dessinée industry. We have a lot of artists, we have a lot of illustrators, we have a lot of animators in terms of, maybe you guys know, what's that studio? Fortiche, that made Arcane, the League of Legends animated series. So that was a French studio. We have a lot of support for culture in general. And also on the ground is where people are really supporting manga in schools, and we have young teachers who grew up with manga who are now, a couple of schools have actually studied Red Flower, my manga, in class with their students, and that's very mainstream now. So we have a really good situation. But if I can add like a tiny spin to it, I would say we're also facing the same challenges as everywhere else in the world, where now the government is trying to take money away from the cultural departments, and these things are being kind of sacrificed in the pursuit of like money saving and restructuring. So I think we're facing the same challenges as you guys as far as the government is concerned.
Actually,
which is a shame, but we're trying to promote our work and defend the importance of culture, not just manga, but reading in general, and arts and music and theater and all these things.
100%.
Louis, I understand that in France, fairly recently, that bande dessinée were declared one of the 9th arts, along with music and architecture and painting and so forth and so on. Did that included, I assume, the word bande dessinée included manga and also American comics, right? Or was it just bande dessinée?
You would think, but the French bande dessinée artists, they don't look so kindly on manga because I think a lot of them are scared they're being replaced because the younger generation doesn't read that much bande dessinée. I think it was 2016 when the sales of manga officially outperformed the sales of bande dessinée. And so, like we all like each format, but the artists that traditionally did bande dessinée, they're not too happy about the replacement.
I think maybe it's time for some questions and hopefully some answers.
Hopefully.
Do we have a protocol here? I see a hand there.
I'm loud enough.
Mics are being
Unless
passed.
you really want me to speak. So, is it on? Hello. All right, well, if you can hear me, that's great. So in '94, they published Manga for support of the X-Men animated series. What is that category of manga in Japan? Something that comes from somewhere else to be read by the Japanese in support of something from somewhere else? Or is it just a translation?
それはただのアメリカ翻訳ですか？それは別のものとして、なんか確かにそれを書いた人は。
わかります。もちろん、それらの、スーパーヒーローものの、英訳も出ているんですが、それと同時に日本の漫画家が、そういった、バットマンとかスーパーマンとかを、書いたという本も出ています。ただ私ちょっと読んだことがないので詳しくは知らないんですけど、そういった本はあります。
I know that there are some mangaka who will take the characters of Batman, Superman, these US-based comic book characters and create manga from them, but I haven't read any, so I'm not too familiar with the genre.
The one who did it was Higashi.
樋口博先生が書いたものです。樋口博先生。
ちょっと後でチェックして。
I'll look into it.
Ben, you have a question?
So manga in Japan, has, along with the actual publishing industry, also has a huge associated element of fan-made work, doujinshi. For Gigi and Loui, do you see any parallel to that going on in France or the U.S. that people who are starting that part of the culture of Japanese manga? Do you see that? Is that something that we're starting to happen, that we're being transferred? Is that just a uniquely Japanese phenomenon?
Do you want to answer first, Loui?
Yeah, for sure. I was going to say we have that same industry in France. It's still developing. It's still young, but in the self-publishing area, we have a lot of up-and-coming artists, manga artists, and it's not just a French phenomenon. It's a very European thing. Like when I do conventions, the equivalent of like New York Comic Con in France would be the Japan Expo at Paris, which is the biggest European convention we have. We have artists from Germany, Spain, Italy, a lot of French artists who are doing the European equivalent of doujinshi. And some of them, myself included, end up getting signed by big publishers and getting their pro debut. The publishing industry isn't quite the same as Japan, but that specific way of breaking into the industry also exists for us.
Yeah, so in the US, it's interesting. We have some fan works, but the culture is nowhere near doujinshi in Japan. Like it's like a whole different industry almost. I feel as if with self-publishing work we're finding our way as well. But in the tradition of like being American, it's everybody wants to do their own story and not quite add to the the fandom, the previous work. But there are some people who create some fan works, like comics of fan works, but it's not quite on the same level at all, I don't think. It would be nice though. I would really be interested to read like American doujinshi kind of like fan stuff. So like if you guys want to create fan art manga, like please send it my way.
Yeah, but Gigi, I was going to say, you guys are famously litigious as well in the US, so I don't know how the intellectual rights would play
That
out,
is
because
also
I know
true.
it's a gray area in Japan as far as reusing someone else's character is considered like tribute, it's considered as like helping or advertising the original series. I think in the US and in France we have that same question, like are you allowed to draw someone else's character and make a living from it? It's a very touchy area for us.
That's also true. Even with fan art, like stickers and prints and pins and different things, like sometimes with artists that is starting to get into tricky territory also. So yeah, that's probably why that subculture hasn't really like taken off like the way it has in Japan and the US, which is a shame, but yeah.
Yeah, we have examples in America like Dan O'Neill. Disney put him out of business very quickly.
Nobody wants to repeat that.
No. Let's see, another question right there.
So my question is, I know that in America there are a lot of conventions. I'm back here. Sorry. Everyone's so surprised.
You do have the mic.
But we have a lot of spaces where artists congregate and meet and exchange ideas, often through conventions that come and go. They pop up, but they're all across the country. I've had an opportunity to check out Comic Head in Japan and an opportunity to check out Angoulême in France. And I was curious, since those are just so massive, if there are places that artists congregate and conventions or some other way that this culture kind of travels throughout these nations, and possibly even in Ghana, because I'm also kind of curious about the culture of comics in Ghana as they are emerging. If there are any specific, actually, if you have any Ghana recommendations, I'll be game for that too. That's really cool. All right,
That's a wide open question.
That's a very wide question.
Loui, you can maybe
I
comment.
see people looking at me. I mean, France, as I say, we're blessed. We have so many festivals. We have so many and very theme-specific festivals. So every weekend there's festivals for young literature, for like children's literature. There's festivals for bande dessinée specifically. There's festivals for comics. There's festivals for manga. There's festivals for books. So authors have so many different circuits that they can just be attending events. And because France is such a small country compared to the US, I only have to take the train for like an hour or two to be at the next city and do a festival. Whereas when I was in New York and I wanted to do a festival in Washington the next week, we had to drive. It was 5 or 6 hours. It was an eternity to me. I could have crossed France once or twice in that time. So definitely geographically, we have that advantage. Ghana, I can't speak to it. It's more of a oral sing and dance and food culture. So we're working on that. I think why manga is such a phenomenon in France and in the US is because we were two cultures that had a prior, we had a pre-existing culture as far as reading images was concerned. You guys had comics, we had bande dessinée. And so when the Japanese exported manga, the US and France were very happy to just integrate it. We had experience with it, whereas Ghana had no experience with that. England didn't have that industry, so you won't find a very big manga industry in England. So that's my analysis of it, but I might be wrong, but I think that's why we have success in these areas.
I think maybe we have time for at least one more question.
I was just curious, just to hear, like particular works or like artists that inspired you?
Hi. この漫画の表紙を見ていただくと分かるんですけれども、タンタンの冒険というベルギーのフランス語の、日本ではほぼ絵本として、読まれているんですけど、その漫画は、クリアラインっていう明確な線で表したそのキャラクターと輪郭を描くスタイルなんですけど、そういったものにはすごく影響を受けています。
So if you look at the cover of my manga, you'll probably pick up that I was very influenced by French-Belgian comics. For example, The Adventures of Tintin. This is something that's sold more as a children's book in Japan, but they have very clear lines, and I liked that style.
Okay, well, if you look at my cover, I can pull this out actually. I am super influenced by Junji Ito, I think. People can kind of pick that up. I'm also quite influenced by Satoshi Kon. So this image is actually a reference to a Satoshi Kon work. You might get a freebie if you get it. But yeah, I actually am influenced not just by horror manga artists, but also Naoki Urasawa. I'm like a massive fan of Naoki Urasawa and his style of storytelling and like the way I also really like the way he draws. I think it's very charismatic and like whimsical. But there's quite a few. Kintaro Miura, rest in peace, is also a huge influence, I think, of my work as well. And some Japanese illustrators, like Rockin' Jelly Bean, I am quite inspired by him. If you are under 18, do not look up his work. Do not look up his work. It's lowbrow stuff. It is like, it's American influenced, but like very like Japanese in that way also. It's good.
Just great, right?
It's great. Yeah. Not for under 18 though. So yeah, I'm inspired by a handful of people, I would say, yeah.
Loui, do you have
do you need water,
Yeah.
Loui?
Do you need any
Also,
water,
we
Loui?
have water for you.
I am good.
You haven't touched
so
it
yet. I'm going to cite a few American influences of mine because you guys cited French and Japanese influences. I love Bill Watcherson. I think his work on Calvin and Hobbes was the perfect combination of whimsical, thought-provoking, expressive, and that's what I aspire to do in my work. Not graphically, like not in terms of drawing style, but in terms of like the feelings that it conveys to the readers. I love Bill Watterson. I recently, well, I think Gigi, you were there as well a few months ago, I had the privilege of meeting the author of Mouse, Art Spiegelman.
Yes, yeah.
And I love his line work. I love the impact of his legacy and his work. But I do have a few Japanese influences as well. Like I think every single work has something interesting, so I try to read everything, just French bande dessinée, movies, comics, theater, anime. I don't discriminate as far as my influences are concerned.
Make sure you exercise and take deep breaths once in a while. Do yoga. Don't. I think we basically come to the end here, probably. Am I right? Okay.
Unless we have time for another question.
I'm online if you want to go online.